Kia ora, good morning, good evening. Welcome to the second session of ICA Pacific Hub, organized by Center for Culture Center Approach to Research and Evaluation. In this session, we have two presentations, and both the presentations are relating to COVID-19 pandemic. At first, I will present Rohingya refugee negotiations of COVID-19 at the margins of the margins. So I think I should start my presentation now. So my name is Rahman. I am on the last stage of my PhD on communication and journalism, and I also working as a research assistant at Center for Culture Center Approach to Research and Evaluation since March 2020. I came to New Zealand in March 2020, and then I started to work with the Rohingya refugees living in the Palmerston North, and still I am dealing with the Rohingya people living at this city. So at first, I would like to say who are Rohingyas or Rohingyas, because sometimes some media call them also Rohingyas. So Rohingyas are the Muslim ethnic minority people living in the Rakhine state of Myanmar for centuries. So Myanmar has 7 states. Rakhine is one of them, and previous name of Rakhine state is Arakan state. And Rohingyas are starting to settle to Arakan state in between 8 to 9 centuries. So they are living there for centuries. But though they have been living there for centuries, they do not have any identity. They are totally stateless, and according to the UN, they are the largest stateless population of the world. If we consider their arrival in Arakan or Rakhine state, then their arrival in Arakan correlated with British colonialism in 1824 to 1948, and then in Second World War, Japanese invasion, that is 1942 to 1945. So from 1824 to 1948, Myanmar, Bangladesh, and India, just you can see the map. We are just neighboring countries, Bangladesh, India, Burma, that is Myanmar. The previous name of Myanmar was Burma. We all are the colony of British, more than 200 years. So if we consider the history of Arakan state or Rakhine state, Arakan was a sovereign state until 1784. And at that time, Arakan or Rakhine state was known as Arakan region, Arakan province, or kingdom of Arakan, or you can say Morak Iu, the red or brown color portion, that is Rakhine state, and whole is the Myanmar or Burma. The previous name was Burma, and beside Burma, my country, Bangladesh, and we're surrounded by India. So this whole region was under British for about 200 years. So at that time, Rohingya people lived there, and not only at that time, before that, I think from 8th century, they have been living in Myanmar. So if we consider the history, from 1824 to 1826, Burma was governed by the British, and in 1948, Burma gained independence. And if we think about the naming, in 1989, Burma renamed as Myanmar, and the Arakan state renamed as Rakhine state. And Rakhine state is the state where Rohingya people have been living for centuries. So as this regional hub is relating with the indigenous people, so Rohingya people definitely indigenous to Rakhine state or Myanmar, but they are not considered as indigenous people, or even they do not have any identity, they do not have any citizenship right, they do not have any rights in Myanmar, and totally they are stateless. So if we consider the historical background, in 1948, Myanmar got independence, and at that time, Rohingya people have full citizenship rights. And from 1948 to 1962, there are some civilian government in Myanmar. But in 1962, army came to power. And still today, from 1962 to 2015, army was in power in Myanmar. And then 2015 to 2020, there are some civilian government, that is Aung San Suu Kyi, you know her name. She was in power, but that was also mentioned at that time also there is army control. Though Aung San Suu Kyi was in power. So from 1962, army came in power, and after when army came to power, the Rohingya people started to lose their all rights. And from 1962 till today, and then 1978, Myanmar military-led verification citizenship program started. They want to know who are the citizens, and that was the first exodus of Rohingyas from Myanmar to Bangladesh. That is 1978. That is the first military crackdown against Rohingya people, and then it was happening several times in 1991, then 2012, then 2015, and last in 2017. And through this military crackdown, all the Rohingya, not all the, I should not say all, 80% of Rohingyas were bound to leave their motherland. Now, if I consider the total population of Rohingyas, 3.5 million throughout the world, but only 600,000 or less than 600,000 live in Myanmar, and most of them are distributed throughout the world. And the maximum Rohingyas, that is more than 1.2 million, they are now living in Bangladesh as refugees. Sorry to mention, they are not also, Bangladesh government did not mention them as refugee, but Bangladesh government called them as forcibly displaced Myanmar nationals. They are not calling them refugees. I think it is the strategy of Bangladesh government, because if they consider Rohingyas as the refugees, then there are some obligations for the refugees' rights. So Bangladesh government did not call them refugees, but referred them as FDMN. So here are some pictures in 1978. At first, they expelled out from Myanmar. And then in 1991, here I think I should, let's see the map. Here is the Bangladesh and Rakhine State. So between two borders, there is only a canal, that is Nap River. So whenever any happenings happened in Rakhine State, the Rohingya people just cross the Nap River and enter into Bangladesh. Bangladesh got its independence in 1971, but from 1978 to till today, they are trying to enter into Bangladesh because they do not have any rights. They do not have any citizenship in Myanmar. In 1982, they lost their citizenship rights in Myanmar. And it is the scenario of 1978, and it is 1991, and then again 2012, and the latest one, that is in August, September, October 2017, and it is also called by some international agency as genocide, because more than 700 people came within 3 months from Myanmar to Bangladesh. And in total now, more than 1.2 million officially, but unofficially, more than 1.6 million Rohingya people have been sheltering in Bangladesh, in the Cox's Bazar area, the southern part of Bangladesh. And it is that scenario, and only 600,000 left in Myanmar. And they are also still, they are staying in Myanmar, but they do not have any rights. They do not have any citizenship rights. As a result, they are trying to leave their country. So with denied citizenship rights, Rohingya people, they're always try to leave their country. And there is a term for boat people. You may have the term boat people, because they try to leave Myanmar, risking their life through just like the boat. And they try to go to the Malaysia, Indonesia, just crossing the sea, risking their lives. So boat people is a common term from 2007 or 2014. So they always try to go from Myanmar to other developed countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, just nearby countries. But maximum people, Rohingya people, are now living in Bangladesh. And this is the scenario where you can see from the Rakhine State, they try to go everywhere. And if we see the total number of Rohingya people in Bangladesh, they are now living on more than 1.6 million people. In Saudi Arabia, around 500,000. In Pakistan, around 500,000. Myanmar, I think now its figure is not right. Now it is less than 500,000 living in Myanmar. Throughout the world, they are distributed, as they do not have any rights. And if we consider the refugee people means when they are bound to leave their country through war or do not have any rights. But if we consider other refugee people, they have some documents, they have some passport. For example, Syrian or Afghan refugee people, they have some passport. But Rohingya refugee people, they do not have any documents in their life. but still they're trying to leave and they are risking their life. At first, they tried to leave from Myanmar by the boat, but nowadays they also try to leave from Bangladesh camps because the condition of Bangladesh camps is not also good. They're trying to leave from Bangladesh camps also by risking their life through the boat. So every year, many Rohingya people died at the sea while crossing the sea to reach the Malaysia, Indonesia, etc. country. So though they are trying to refuse in other countries, even some countries did not recognize them as refugees, though they fulfill all the conditions of refugees. Because refugee people is a person who is forced to leave their home country because of war, political, religious oppression, or persecutions. So all the conditions, though fulfilled by the Rohingya people, but they are not recognized, even refugees, by many countries. For example, my country, Bangladesh recognized them as FDMN, forcibly displaced Myanmar national. Malaysia treat them as illegal immigrants. India also treat them as illegal immigrants. Saudi Arabia same, and also Pakistan. Everywhere they are not treated as a refugee. But in Malaysia they have some rights because UNHCR working in Malaysia, UNHCR also working in Bangladesh, also in India, but they are not. Some cards are given to them, identity card, because they do not have any identity document. So that is known as UNHCR cards or UN card. And through UN cards, they got some rights in Malaysia. And in New Zealand, I am working with the Rohingya refugee people from 2020. And the Rohingya refugee people living in New Zealand, they are mainly coming from Malaysia. Earlier, they came from Thailand or some other countries, but nowadays, they are mainly coming from Malaysia using their UN card or UNHCR card. Because UNHCR card mentioned there are some, it's just mentioned them as refugees. And UNHCR has the system of third country resettlement process, and through third country resettlement process, Rohingyas come to New Zealand. Now I would like to say some scenario of Rohingya refugees in New Zealand. From 2000, they started to come to New Zealand, and till today, there are around 1,500 Rohingya refugees living in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And they came through UNHCR third country resettlement process. And New Zealand has the quota system for the refugees. Every year, New Zealand receives 1,500 refugees all over the world. And among 1,500, I think 100 or 200 maybe the Rohingya refugees. And they are mainly coming from Malaysia using their UNHCR cards. And I have been working with the Rohingya refugees living in Palmerston North. And Rohingya refugees started to settle down in this city since 2017. And now there are 50 Rohingya families living in Palmi. And I started to work with them after coming here in 2020, because I came in 2020 for my PhD. After coming here, I started to work with the CARE, and then I have been giving the responsibility to work with the Rohingya people, and I work with them. So Rohingya refugees definitely the margins of the margins group of the world, because all the refugees, I think, not only the Rohingya refugees, they are the marginalized community, and in New Zealand, Rohingyas face marginalization in negotiating the country's system that is embedded in whiteness and new liberalism. And in healthcare, the country positions interest values of white Pakeha culture as universal, erasing the cultural values, voices of all the refugees, including the Rohingya refugees. And Rohingya refugee marginality is shaped by the interactions among ethnicity, citizenship status, social class, income level, and also definitely the poverty level. So while you're dealing with the Rohingya refugees, I always follows the culture-centered approach. And culture-centered approach is a meta-theoretical framework working through structure, culture, and agency. And it mainly works for the community, marginalized community, and Rohingya community, definitely the marginalized community of the world. So I am just utilizing culture-centered approach to take their interviews, to take their data during the COVID-19. What is their experience during the COVID-19 period, during the lockdown period. And as I mentioned earlier, I started to work with the Rohingya refugees during COVID time in 2020. I started to work with them in May or June after the lockdown. And I generally use culture-centered approach. And I took around 30 in-depth interview of the Rohingya refugees living in this city, and I used semi-structured interview technique involving open-ended questions with probes and comments. And for me, I took all the interviews in person during the COVID period, because at that time, though no lockdown, but I should have to follow the COVID protocols to take the interviews. And interview was mainly taken in the houses of the Rohingya refugees. And in culture center approach, we utilize a system that is Rohingya community researchers. Community researcher means he is the member of that community. He works as a interlocutor or as a translator between me and with the Rohingya refugee people. So with the help of community researchers, I took around 30 interviews for the Rohingya refugees to find out what are their challenges during the COVID-19 period or during the lockdown. So what I found through the interview, because at first I should say shortage of healthcare items during the COVID-19 period. It is observed by Mr. Bloomfield on 27th March, and we know in New Zealand lockdown started on 25th March 2020, as far I know. He mentioned personal protective items, masks, gloves, etc. were plentiful, and steady and distribution was being made rock and solid. But what's the observation or what's the narratives of the Rohingya refugees? One of the Rohingya refugees mentioned, I did not find face mask to purchase. So without mask, sometimes I had to go to the shop, and at that time I used a separate cloth as mask, as I did not find any masks to buy, or anyone did not provide me the mask. Again, he mentioned, some people asked me why I use clothes as the mask. Then I replied that I could not find mask from any sources, or even could not buy. Then they told me to make distance from them while I was in the shop. This is one of the examples of Rohingya refugees. So there is shortage of items, not only healthcare items, I think other items also, because there is a panic buying that is also prevailing in New Zealand. So they do not find the healthcare items, even they do not find it is free from any sources. And higher prices of commodities. During COVID-19 period, basically during the lockdown period, the prices were higher. We all know that, and Rohingya refugee people feel it very much. Now the main problem was that I could not go outside. Even I could not go to my school, because for English learning, Rohingya refugee people get free English learning in ETC and ELP to system. But during COVID-19 period, even I could not go to my school for English learning. The kids also could not go outside. After 7 or 14 days, I went to market to purchase commodities, but the prices of commodities were very high. The benefit we get was not enough to buy all the foods. Again, I had to wait for a longer period of time in the outside of the shop to get entry. Because during COVID-19 period, there is a queue in the outside of the shop. We all know that. So they always they faced all this problem during the COVID-19 period. Another example, the main problem we faced that the benefit amount was not increased during the lockdown, but the prices of commodities were high. So we could not manage to buy foods as per our requirement during the lockdown. When I asked if lockdown come again, what's your observation? Then one of the Rohingya refugees mentioned, I wish that lockdown may not come again, but if it comes again, we want that those who are living only on benefit from government should be taken care more, because the benefit is not enough to lead a life, as the prices of essentials increased during the lockdown. For your information, Rohingya refugees generally live on the benefit or the honorarium getting from the government. They generally do not have any job, because they do not have any educational qualification. Throughout their life, they do not have even get chance for any education. So though they come here through UNHCR-led third country resettlement process, but they do not get any job here. So longer waiting time at the market during long COVID-19 period. Yes, that was very terrible for us. We had to wait for hours to enter into the Pack and Save or Countdown supermarket. The Pack and Save and New World Countdown shops were open during lockdown. The problem was with longer waiting time, and we had to maintain 2-meter distance, whether outside or inside the market. The main problem was to wait for a longer period of time at the super shops during the lockdown. At first, waiting outside of the shop, maintaining distance, and then only one person is allowed to enter. And again, longer waiting time to give the bill at the counter. It is the scenario of the market. If we think about the healthcare sector, longer waiting time at the healthcare centers. We face serious problems when we visit hospital. At the hospital, we have to wait for 5 to 6 hours to see the doctor. It is very difficult to see doctor in the hospital. If you go to the hospital in the evening, there may be possibility of to get the doctors or to visit the doctor advice even in the next morning. And during lockdown, the problem was severe. In the hospital, 5 to 6 hours waiting is very common, and during the COVID period, it was more. To get less waiting time, we visit city doctor clinic, but there we have to pay. In hospital, Rohingya refugees, not only Rohingya refugees, all the refugee people, they get free treatment, but there is longer waiting time. So sometimes they try to go to the city doctor clinic, but that is private clinic. There they have to pay. They have faced problem with the contactless payment because during lockdown period, no cash payment was allowed. So we are newcomers. We face problems in the debit or credit cards. In many shops, we could not go for market as they are often closed and they are using the cards, debit or credit cards during COVID-19. One day I purchased food, but my ATM card did not have the balance. Then I tried to pay by cash, but they did not accept the cash. So I had to keep the food items back in the shop. Though I needed that item, but due to the card system, I could not bring that. That was very painful for me. Super shops like Countdown, Pack and Save used only cards, and so even in some days I returned without shopping anything as I did not have the cards. Then I went to Indian or Asian shops, and by requesting them, I could manage to buy foods with my cash money. However, during the lockdown, the Asian or Indian shopkeepers did not touch the cash money. So I had to put the cash money in a plastic bag and then gave the money to the shops. By this way, I managed to purchase foods during lockdown. So it was a very difficult time for them as they did not know how to use the debit or credit cards. And some of them even did not have the cards also because they tried to collect the benefit just cash money. And it is the major language barrier, they do not, Rohingya refugee people do not have any chance in their life to get education. Even they do not know the letters of the English letters. Even. So they cannot read or write. I met some Rohingya refugee people here, though they are staying in 5 years in this country, even they could not express their terms in English, though they are staying 5 years. So language barrier is common for all the refugees, including the Rohingya refugees. So the COVID-19, if we think about the COVID-19 awareness documents were written in English, but I could not read English. In the document, I only understand the picture, and picture also shows how to wash your hands. So he could not get information through the television or etc. because he did not understand the language. Rohingya refugees mainly go to the ETC. ETC is an English teaching institute. The teachers of ETC informed us about the COVID-19. They instructed us not to go outside, always try to maintain cleanliness, try to maintain social distancing. And the refugee mentioned all the instructions given at the food item packet written in English. As we could not read English, it creates problem for us to find out which food item is halal or not, because Rohingya people are mainly Muslim. They tried to find out the food item that is halal, but they could not read the instructions. But other time, they generally took community member or friend with them to find out which product is halal. But during COVID-19, 2 people are not allowed in the shop. So they face problem to find out which food is halal or not. During COVID-19 period, as 2 people were not allowed together in the supermarket, and so we could not take help from community members. So we faced problems to buy. Then we did not buy meat or chicken. We only purchased fish and vegetables during the lockdown period. So overall, Rohingya refugees undergo disparities in accessing healthcare sources during the COVID-19 period. Accessing general practitioners or GP were unquestionably at crisis level for the majority of the Rohingya refugees during the lockdown. COVID-19 pandemic response of this country, as I mentioned earlier, embedded in whiteness and colonialism, does not consider the refugee voice. Though the health policies of New Zealand are embedded in the notions of care and kindness, Rohingya participants noted the one-size-fits-all approach did not work for them. They are left out in the COVID-19 response, arguing challenges to their health and well-being. So what can be done for them? So I think listening to the refugee voice and building infrastructures for refugee voices, continuous engagement and dialogue with the refugee people, and replacement of top-down approach by the bottom-up approach. As we are thinking about in culture center approach, it is a bottom-up approach. We are thinking about the voice infrastructure of the community people. What they think about that the solution that should be implemented. If the health scenario for the marginalized community, if we want to think to a better system for them, so it should be changed. I think that's all from me.
Any questions or comments?
I just a comment maybe.
Yes, sure.
You have worked a lot with the Rohingya community for so long. Just wanted to understand, it might be applicable to all other refugees as well. Like when they come from a different country, especially for Rohingyas who have not received any education in their life and are also stateless, they don't have identity card. They are surviving only on benefits, maybe because for other refugees it might be easier to integrate because at least they have some qualification or maybe something.
Yeah.
But and for when they're surviving only on benefits, from your communication with the Rohingyas or from your opinion as a researcher, what do you think is the next step for them? Because is it how they're going to, even their next generation, is it how they're going to survive only on benefits, or is there should be a mechanism to help them integrate better in their host country? Is there something that you learned? Did this ever appear in your conversation with the Rohingyas? How they expect? What is their idea of being integrated into the host country here in New Zealand?
Yeah, what I stress, they are trying to get some jobs, but as they do not have any educational qualification, they do not get any good job. Then maximum Rohingya refugees are now living the benefit. So it does not look good to them also, because always to get the benefit and try to leave. Then I ask them, why are you not trying to find a job? Then they mention, as we do not have any education, we generally get the job for the lower grade job, that is less payment. So when they consider it with compare it with the benefit and the payment system, so they think it's more or less same, whatever from the benefit and what they get from the job. So they are not interested to go to the job. It's more or less same. And when refugee people start job, if they are 3-member or 4-member family, then the benefit of other people also stopped. If one person get the job, the benefit of his spouse stopped, and his benefit for the rent stopped. So when he considered everything, they think that it's more or less same. So he's not generally interested to get a job. But thing is that the next generation is definitely they can speak well, they are educating themselves. So next generation will be totally the Kiwi, because the refugee people are coming here under permanent residency. So after 5 years, definitely they will get the citizenship of New Zealand. So it's hopeful that the next generation will be the educated people, and they will develop themselves, incorporate with this society.
Yeah. So their children are going to school
The
government.
Yeah.
So did they expect anything, like in your conversations? What is their idea of being integrated, if at all it came up in your conversation? What is their idea of being integrated in the society? Because as you mentioned that yes, they also don't like to survive on benefits, but the system is such that maybe it is again comes down to the whole top-down approach, that even if one person in the family gets a job, and the allowance stops for all the family members, and then of course they cannot find a high paying job that will on which they can manage their entire household. So even if one person gets a job, it's going to be a meager, like a low paying job with which he will not be able, or he or she will not be able to run the entire household. And that's the top down system, isn't it, which does not really take into account the fact that okay, if we stop the benefits all the members, how is that family going to survive?
Yeah. That's the problem, because it is a system. I even talked with the Rohingya refugee people. Even they do not want to, because getting benefit, it doesn't look good, right? Always trying to live with the benefit, but they do not find good job. And even if a person get the job, the benefit of his spouse is stopped, and even even the child benefit will be stopped. And again, the rent 50%, generally Rohingya refugees house rent 50% are given by the government. The benefit for the rent will also be stopped. So they could not survive by what they're getting through the job. So they are not interested. But I think slowly they're integrated into the society, because the benefit amount is more or less just for their living is enough for them. So they're trying to integrate and full. And what's my observation, the second generation, the next generation will be definitely totally integrated into the society.
Apart from English language training, are they provided with any skills training or anything else?
For the Rohingya refugee people, apart from English training, nothing. Mainly they get the English training, English language training from the free of cost. And as they are coming here with the permanent residency, they're getting all the facilities like the citizen.
Yeah.
Other skills development, I do not know. Mainly I know English skill development.
Thank you for your presentation. Very insightful.
So we should conclude if no comment from.
Oh, I just wanted to say that, I think a lot of the issues that they're facing have nothing to do with them being former refugees, and it's about our low wages that we have and our insufficient income support for all people who are without work, and it's obviously the challenges are even more exacerbated with displaced people. But yeah, it just really speaks to, if you don't have really good support in your country, it makes it much more challenging to do your role that you're supposed to be playing in the world, in supporting former refugees. So I think it really kind of highlights much broader issues that are happening here as well. Yeah, thank you for your presentation.
And they also face challenge to find out the interpreters.
Yeah.
Because the Rohingya interpreters, it's this number of interpreters.
Yeah.
I find there are some families whose children are now educated. They know English, and they also work as interpreters for their parents.
Yeah, yeah. And also there shouldn't be a stigma for having to receive income support, and it's unfortunate that they feel that as well.
Yeah. Good point.
That was a really great presentation. Thank you so much for sharing all of the knowledge that you gained from just speaking to these families. Yeah, I was just also thinking, kind of going off what Arama was talking about, just how even the refugee and asylum seeker resettlement processes within the New Zealand state, and how it kind of functions is measuring everything according to settlement equals economic success, right? Economic parameters and contributions, and you have to get a job, you have to have this particular kind of education, and then education is a really formal and institutionalized way. So, I'm sure this has come up in your own analysis as well of this study, of just how relevant is it to even consider integration as the goal that we want, because if it's integration into a white supremacist and capitalist state, is it worth it? Probably not. So just looking at the community and how they functioning within this pushing them towards this developmentalist kind of framework that the state has constrained them within already is just another thing that adds this sense of urgency and pressure that they might feel. I had a question, and this could be maybe something that's already in your future plans for this project, is just whether you have worked or plan to work with Manawatu and building those continued engagements with refugee communities here in Pami.
I'm already. I have a job. Besides this, I also working as a settlement cross-cultural worker at the New Zealand Red Cross, and I also just last month I joined as a another organization in the city, there is Manawatu Multicultural Council. They are also dealing with the refugee and migrant people. So I have continuous engagement with them. Not only Rohingya refugee people, other refugee people. I'm trying to assist them in New Zealand.
I really like that point, when we're talking about integration, but is it even worth it when we're talking about integrating into a white supremacy society? But then what is the solution? Maybe not solution, maybe that's the wrong word as well, but then to give them of course, to get them that identity that they have been longing for their whole life, but also to be able to just, live on their own terms. Maybe it's not full integration, but some form of,
Belonging.
sorry?
Belonging?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, definitely they have some forms of belonging, because when they do not have any documents in their life, only UN card, that is also a temporary card. But when they're coming to New Zealand or through third country resettlement process, New Zealand, USA or Australia, they are getting the permanent residency. So definitely they have belongingness to that country.
Just like really disappointing as well, just the international response to the genocide. It's when I think about how much news attention it's given, and our politicians are not speaking out about these things.
It's still same thing, because Bangladesh is not a developed country. It is also a least developed country. We have more than 160 million people, but area is half of New Zealand. Still, Bangladesh is giving shelter of more than 1.2 million Rohingya refugees. And from 2017 till today, not a single Rohingya refugee is repatriated to Myanmar. Still there.
That's amazing. And like the countries that you mentioned where they are fleeing, not just Bangladesh, but the other countries in the area, it sounds as though they're going to Muslim majority countries. It's so disappointing that I don't know the specifics, but it feels as though there's more capacity to care coming from the Muslim majority countries in other areas, and that's just so disappointing to me that other countries are not being hospitable.
And then this crisis is going on from 1962 till today. There's still no solution. We don't know how this Rohingya crisis can be solved. Because just giving third countries resettlement, there are more than 3.5 million people. But every year, how many people get the third country resettlement? It's less number. Maximum are then distributed throughout the world, and then even they do not get the refugee identity. It's their life.
I have a very quick question, but in any of the interviews you had with the families, did they express any desire for setting up or going to madrasas or Islamic education?
In the city? In Palma, there is a Islamic center. So the students, their kids generally going to the center to learn the Islamic studies. But generally they are going to the normal education system.
Right.
But for the religious education, they generally go to the Islamic center. Okay.
Thank you, Mahbub, for that. And we will be taking a break, and we will be back with our next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you.